Yeah, man.
Can you hear me? I don't wanna hear myself tonight. Yes, sometimes I fight so many battles that you'll never see. And I know you've been fighting too, just like me. There's no place we can go where our hearts stay home. Heroes in the sky don't have to fly so high. We feel you every day. You're never far away. Heroes in the sky, your love still gets us by. We carry on your name. You're not so far away. Empty chairs and folded flags remain, but your love still runs through our veins. We tell the stories, keep the flame alive. You gave us reason to survive, and though we miss your touch, your spirit lifts us up. Heroes in the sky don't have to fly so high. We feel you every day. You're never far away. Heroes in the sky, your love still gets us by. We carry on your name. You're not so far.
One thing I tell you that this challenge done taught me is just taking everything step by step. You look up that damn hill, seems like it's gonna take forever to get up there. But if you just look at a 45-degree angle, instead of looking straight up, taking one step at a time, keeping your same pace, not worrying about what's going on to your left or your right, promise you, you'll be up before you know it. Hey, we on day what? It's 6. Nothing but 19 more to go. Can't wait. Let's go.
All right, welcome in everybody. I know you see we added a little new intro in there. We wanted to pay homage to our co-founder D'Angelo Shaw for, we lost him back in 2025, and we had video clips with him in it, so I want to incorporate that part of the intro. And yeah, so that's going to be the new intro moving forward. Paying a little bit of homage and memory to him.
Hey, that's what everything's about when it comes to Heroes in the Sky, and just honoring those that are no longer with us.
Yeah, and we didn't lose him to suicide, but we did lose him to violence way too soon, and so unfortunately we're dealing with that loss as anyone else would. And we've got a special guest today that's felt what that loss feels like as well. John Rings joined us once before. We brought him back on because the first time we had some audio issues, and we wanted to make that right and make sure everybody was heard. So we're back again.
Yeah, so, and everything's already been tested and is working great. So we shouldn't have that issue now.
Exactly. I'm gonna pop these comments up before we start so we can engage the audience as well.
Yep, they're rolling. Yep.
All right. Patricia Mayo, thank you. So now let me see here. I need to
and by the way, our audio engineer will be logging in shortly.
Okay, cool. That way he can run everything else. He's a lot better at it than I am. So, but I would say I get paid to sit here and talk, but I get paid in respect and taking care of family. So yeah, we get paid. Yeah. So,
well, no time like the present. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me
got a few sponsors
So tonight, once again, we want to thank our title sponsors for the year is American Legion Post 135. They're right here in downtown Savannah, Georgia. They are at 1108 Bull Street. They are a member of the largest veteran service organization in the nation. They were founded on the principles of service to our veterans and to our community, state, and nation. Their membership is open to any veteran who has served honorably and to active duty service members. They are home to the local 1110, Betty Bombers, Brighter Day, Centennial Bean, and Lee Chai, and their bar is open to the public. The best part about this is if you want to rent that space in beautiful downtown Savannah, it is available for rent. I think they did the floors. Building's phenomenal. Go talk to our friends down there and tell them, hey, Heroes in the Sky sent you. And then we want to thank Mari Bennett, who's a realtor here in our area. And then we want to thank Annie Montenegro from Rawls Realty. So thank y'all, everyone who's made this show possible. Couldn't do it without you. And welcome in, John Ring. We welcome you back.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Letting those voices be heard. Welcome back, Sean. We got another fantastic episode today.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this one as well. We got some time with John, and I'm looking forward to kind of just delving back into it and spending some time with you, sir, and James as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the title of tonight's episode is Between Two Worlds, Transition, Loss, and the Weight We Carry. And it just goes back to the challenges that service members face as they leave that military service. They take that uniform off, leave that purpose behind, and they enter this civilian life with the uncertainty. And then also we'll be talking about that internal lasting impact that suicide loss does have on families due to the fact that they can't find that purpose after they take the uniform off. So,
And then going into that even more, you've got, for the service members, the end of the military service is not just the end of the fight, but it also becomes the beginning of a different battle, specifically involving identity loss, isolation, family strain. We've got employment stress and issues, mental health challenges, and too many other cases, also the suicide risk.
Right. And John, you yourself are a veteran, so you've experienced some of these challenges yourself when you took that uniform off, didn't you, sir?
Yeah, I mean, probably a little less than people that enlist right out of high school, because you're kind of not seen in life yet, you know what I mean? And you're kind of structured to that military world right away as an young adult. I was much older, so I kind of, it was a little bit more easier than me. Plus I did a year in my last year, I was actually walking across the country. So I was kind of like homeless. So
yeah.
While you were in.
Yeah. I did. The last year I was in, they extended my contract for a year so they could support me while I was walking and advocating.
Okay.
Well, I tell you,
that's a different story, and it's a little bit more complicated than that.
But I will say this, though, in certain aspects, I was towards the 2/3 part of through my career. I was able to play professional football in the Army. Let me go do that while I was still in the Army, to kind of do two folds, right? Chase a dream, but then also kind of be, their poster boy in that aspects of things. Like we've got a professional football player while still serving. So I kind of get a little bit of that, and that had to have kind of helped you sometimes kind of clear your head too. So
absolutely, yeah, it's a different world when you're advocating in that capacity. It's freeing. You have a lot of time, and you're just, I don't know, you're stumbling upon some of the best people that are really open-minded to the mission that you're trying to accomplish, and they're coming out and helping you navigate the day-to-day mystery of where am I sleeping tonight, where am I eating tonight, and so I talked about that a little earlier this morning on another show, and it's it's probably one of the best experiences of my life. Just, being out there on the open road, and just every day was a mystery. Who am I going to meet? Who am I going to see? So I loved it, but definitely talked to so many veterans that struggled. And Jimmy's being one of them, one of the guys that walked with me, 25 years, retired master sergeant, went in out of high school, and I think, what, 6 deployments, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Gets out, and he left the military in the sergeant major academy. He was in the sergeant major academy, retired, and he was just like, now what? I don't know what to do. I've been getting told what to do my entire life. Now I got to navigate and figure it out myself. So it's a challenge.
Oftentimes, not to deviate real quick, but more talking about that, I often, we talk about how when you go into service, they morph you and mold you into what the needs of the service are, right? They have to get you thinking and operating the way they want you to, but they really don't deprogram that aspect of you. And that's probably the biggest challenge for most of our service members leaving, is they, just like people get addicted or to the chaos of war, and it's just you're back home. There's no gradual step down to reintegrate to become normal again.
Yeah, for
No.
sure.
No, and this is one of the toughest transitions that a person will probably face if you've experienced serving in the armed forces, going back to the civilian sector. And we see that all the time because the research shows us that first 3, they say that first 3 months to almost up to that year of separation is when you have the highest risk for suicide due to some of these factors we're talking about, like that direct loss of purpose. Like immediately you've lost, a lot of these warriors aren't getting that option like you did, where, for the last part of it, you got to still stay in, but then still define your purpose, have that advocacy to stay. But for most of our warriors today, they don't get that. They get handed that DD 214, and they're like, okay, thank you for your service, and then they're left to figure everything out. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I was talking about how some of the smallest tasks can seem difficult when you're transitioning out, such as filing taxes, such as the little bit of everyday things that, like the every day in the Army, they told you, or in the military, at least in the Army, what uniform to be in, where you needed to be, what was your purpose doing, what were you there for.
Absolutely.
And they gave you the guidance, they gave you the structure, they gave you everything you needed to be successful. And you get out, you lose all of that because you are now in charge of making yourself successful. And a lot of soldiers getting out don't know how to do that because they never filed their taxes on their own. Someone on the base always did it for them. Their wife always did it for them, or somebody, like I'm saying, it's the smaller challenges that you wouldn't think would be so monumental become monumental very fast.
Yeah, and I see it being even harder. And I'm going to use Trey for example. After his deployment to Iraq, he was 18, 19 years old. I think he turned 19 while he was in Iraq. He comes back a different person. And so when you get back from that deployment, a lot of these guys, they start drinking, they start doing other things, because they're going through it, and they're not really given the tools. You have great leadership out there. Don't get me wrong. You do have good leadership out there, but a lot of times they're slipping through the cracks, and they're not talking about it. They're not, they're afraid they're going to get kicked out. They're afraid, all those other stuff. And so you see these soldiers kind of deteriorating from the inside out. And, now not only are they going back into society, they're going back into society already damaged, having to navigate that world itself. I'll use a perfect example. One of Trey's NCOs who handpicked him to go on the deployment. He had just come from AIT, and he reached out to me after Trey passed, and he was like, look, I handpicked Trey to go on this deployment. He was a damn good soldier. you know, and then you come back from that deployment and you start going down that spiral. Well, now you start feeling things like, I'm not that soldier no more. I'm not that guy anymore. I need to be that guy. And you kind of get lost. And then next thing you know, you're out on the streets looking in, and your military service didn't go the way you planned for it to go.
Hey, Rich. Everybody meet our audio engineer, Rich, the man behind the scenes. Thank you.
I don't know what happened there. It just popped him in.
Yeah, I guess the world needed an introduction to Rich, who's an awesome guy. But hey,
Rich,
there you go.
Yeah, you know, real quick, you know, when we're talking about this, Amber McLam in the comments, I ended up medically separating right before COVID and found that especially hard. Thankfully, I was offered a virtual group through the VA, which allowed us to all discuss our coping mechanisms that we were all using during the transition process, as well as COVID, and then they started the foundation from that shall not be named. But you know, adversity always creates opportunities, though, in most situations and cases. And you know what you were talking about, John, about the leadership, right? You know, as a leader, they spend so much time, tasks and purposes, you know, during business hours. And as an NCO, yeah, you need to check on your troops after, you know, when they're on their off times and such. But how many leaders actually spend time with their troops off duty, really getting to know their family, really like saying, okay, as a young man or woman, you know, being appropriate here, you know, how do you be an adult?
Yeah.
Like, how can I teach you how to be an adult? Part of the problem with some of the leadership is you have a lot of young leaders who have never really experienced life outside of the military as well.
Correct.
So there's challenges there. And then when you get out and you're thrown into all these real world problems, because I'm going to be blunt about this, you're sheltered in the military.
Mm-hmm.
You're sheltered from corporate America problems, a lot of the blue collar problems. You know, where's my next paycheck coming from? How am I going to be able to afford health insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Like those things, you take it for granted. But leadership doesn't really ever train you for that next piece of it.
And absolutely not. And just for Amber's point, and thank you, Katie, for coming in. Katie lost her significant other, Jeremy, to his internal war as well. So we want to thank you for coming in, Katie, and definitely recognize you for the sacrifice and struggles that you've had to make as well. And I just want to highlight Amber. She's also an author. I met Amber through several other sources, which we won't name. She's an awesome person. She's an author. She does consulting. Just outstanding person. So check out her books, check out her website, and thank you for being in here tonight, Amber. So one of the questions I want to ask is, John brought this up, and it was how so many of our young service members getting out, or even while they're still in, they find these vices to get hooked on, and they start deteriorating from the inside, right? So I have personal stories of these vices, of what that looks like. Do either of you have any of those personal stories where it's you know, you found yourself struggling from the inside due to a certain vice or a certain addiction or just something, just, you know, whatever it may be?
Go ahead, Sean.
You know, for me, in most cases, it came down to control, right? Chaos for me was control, because it allowed me to solve problems that were real, like in my face. And just the more that was in front of me, the more I felt at peace or at calm. I could like start dissecting the problem. And oftentimes it was me creating that problem in those environments just so I could fix it. And that does become an addiction. Like, that's chasing the chaos. Chaos is an addiction.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
So for me, mine wasn't, drugs, alcohol, or anything like that. It was controlling situations and
Hmm.
thinking that I had, for lack of better terms, a Superman complex. Nothing could take me down. But that could have been so much
Yeah,
further than the truth.
correct.
But
Absolutely.
mine comes more from the advocacy side of things. After being in the military, is kind of feeling like I had to do more. Like I had to be there, and that really ate me up because the deeper you dive into advocacy, especially when you're doing the groundwork, and I mean that. Look, there's many factors in advocacy. There's plenty of roles in it. But when you're on the ground and you're in those dark moments,
Hmm.
you don't realize what that's doing to you as an advocate. Like you're just
No.
wearing yourself down. So and that's why like one thing every almost a video I do, anything I put out, I try to remind everybody, look, if you're an advocate, thank you. But listen, take care of yourself because I drove myself down to like the bottom, sitting with veterans. And I think I mentioned it the last show, but at one point I was sitting with a veteran who was highly intoxicated. He served in the Navy. He had just lost his wife that day, 35 years. And, you know, there's a guy sitting there with a gun. You know what I mean? Sheriff's department's on the outside going, we're not going in, and I'm thankfully they didn't because it probably wouldn't have went the way it did. But,
Hmm.
there's so many different factors. And when you're in there, you kind of like just keep entrenching yourself and entrenching yourself. And then I got to the point where I was like, whoa, like I can't help somebody if I can't take care of me. And so that's why for the last 2 years, I've been kind of like on the sideline, and it's just take care. You got to take care of yourself. And that's my thing. That was an addiction for me. Like I had to be there. I had to be there. I had to be there.
Yeah, mine for me was the first phase of that was when I first got out. I had to go through 2.5 years of exposure therapy, and I made a promise to myself that I was not going to turn to alcohol. I was not going to turn to any kind of vices until I could to get back on my feet and mentally I was capable of handling anything because I wasn't at that time. And then those that slowly turned into an addiction or just the use of sleeping pills to end the days because I was hurting mentally so bad that what people saw on the outside was I went to the gym, I went to work, I was smiling, and probably some of the time that I've known Amber was probably some of this time that when we after I was done outside advocating for everybody else, I would come home and try to drown out everything with sleeping pills. So I just couldn't take it anymore. And that was the reality for me was I was hiding it so well that it became addictive that I would meticulously plan my day to know exactly when I would be home, exactly when I would take them, and exactly how long it took for those pills to kick in so I wouldn't hurt anymore. And
The other thing is like when we're talking about advocacy or even mental health providers, James, I know you're in the mental health space,
mhm,
directly and indirectly. Um, Me as well, and have been in the past. I've been an intensive in-home therapist for at-risk youth and things, but everybody needs to know this. Even therapists need therapists, and advocates need advocates.
mhm,
It's not just one person can bear the weight forever. They still have to
Yeah,
offload those traumas that they are helping work through with people, and um, because the burnout is real.
very much
yes,
so.
yes. I've stood on ground on scene at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning in Pooler, Georgia, for a port police officer that was threatening to take her life, and I helped the police officers navigate the situation of how to get the weapons away from her, of how to this is what we need to do here. because at that time the police officers didn't have the training they needed either. John just said it. If the police officers would have been allowed inside, it probably would have ended very badly. And I've seen those situations, and I've been inadvertently. I work in the mental health field, but I've been a mental health advocate for the past 6-7 years, and it's rough. And it's really easy to lose sight of yourself or even your family. Like, you have to be very careful too that you don't dedicate all your time to doing the advocacy work and then putting your family in the rear view. Because I am completely guilty of that one, and I've gotten in trouble quite a bit for it. So, but someone's got to, exactly. It catches up with you fast.
I would say in the last 3 years since moving to Florida, I feel so much more at peace to where I don't have to chase the control.
Yeah.
And my environment, which is my support system, my refuge, my home, the people I surround myself with, they're not sucking the energy and the life from me because I've set boundaries to say, you know what, I'm going to give a little bit. And if there's something that comes back in return, that's worth giving a little more to. But if I give something and it doesn't come back, then I'm wasting my time.
That's something to be said too. It's very important who you surround yourself with and how calm you stay. Or if, like, I can actually say that since we've been working with Nautical Salute and been up to Florida with your lovely family, and y'all have made us family. The things that used to stress me out or used to throw me over the edge, I feel like I have a better support system now where if that were to happen again, I could just pick up the phone and even send a text and say, hey, I'm hurting, or it's just, I don't know. The people you put around you, the people you put around you is very significant to your healing and how you maintain yourself.
I agree with that, but Sean, one word that stood out to me that you said that hits the nail on the head with every aspect of life: boundaries. Boundaries. When you set positive boundaries, no matter what it is that you're doing, and especially in the veteran advocacy world, you alleviate a lot of your stress.
Yeah.
100%. And that took me a very, very, it was like a hard lesson for me to learn, that the boundary of first of all, in the advocacy world, we think we can save everybody. That is just not the case. You can't save everybody. And, as much as we want to, it's just not that way. And so the boundaries that you set for yourself, no matter what you're doing in life, I think that is the key to success.
Talking about the people that we have around us, Rich, who's actually off my left here, who's assisting and running banners and being, doing what he does from an engineering side for us. He's gotten to see a different side even of me this past week because he's with me working at the military base. But, some of the situations that I would have handled totally different in the past, I now look at it completely different because of the last 3.5 years where I have set boundaries for myself. It's not the boundaries isn't just for everybody else. It's for me too, to say, I'm not going to allow myself to go this far or expose too much for this. I'm going to take a breath, slow down, do it right, and reach out to the people and get out of them the most I can for the situation, right? Not for me. If anybody ever goes into it looking at it from a personal gain perspective, they're going to continue to struggle. Like, hey, I've got to save everybody. I've got the savior complex, right? but trusting and learning how to trust the right people with that peace and that refuge, like that
Oh, yeah.
takes time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Welcome in, Ginger. Thank you. So, boundaries are great. And what I love about boundaries is, have you noticed too, when you set boundaries for yourself, that when you start to change, that you start those boundaries that protect you maybe don't sit well with others. And so they start to, to talk about you, talk down about you because your boundaries that you put to protect yourself, to protect your own peace. You know how quickly people will turn on you once you start to protect yourself. It's crazy.
Well, it's easy to be a cheerleader when they're all included and you're doing all the work. But when you have, but when you say, okay, whoa, it's 100%, 100%. It's not me give 50%, James gets 50%, and the scraps are left over, because there's still 50% to be given or received by somebody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
100, it's a relationship. It's all 100% by everybody to make it work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it takes, even in the mental health world, when you work around therapists that do this for a living, it's really difficult for them to reach out and take care of themselves, because that, we've already said it once, that burnout is real. And when you deal with this day in and day out, people look at you as like superhuman, but you still have the same emotions and trauma to deal with. Like, everyone carries their own set of trauma. It may look different for you or I, but at some point, everyone's dealing or battling some kind of trauma.
Now, let me ask this question, John, and even to James, both of you. Did you become self-aware of your addiction to control or sleeping pills or whatever it was, or did somebody else bring that awareness to you that there was a problem that they had with it?
I'll let John answer that one.
So for me, I think, don't get me wrong. I mean, people would come up to me and be like, "Hey, man, you need to take a break. You need to take," you know what I mean? But for me, I think a lot of it was self-aware, because I found myself being more disgruntled, with situations, and not responding the way I used to respond to things, or just being annoyed by situations. And you know, and one thing about James knows about me is I traveled everywhere. Like I would be in Texas. The next thing you know, you're going to sleep. I'm waking up and I'm in like New York. So not only on top of the advocacy part, I did a lot of traveling on top of that. But I think I more or less became self-aware that I needed to step away. Like, I needed the break. I needed to figure things out. And I did learn so much about myself when I did that.
Yeah.
How was that received by other people?
Honestly, people closest to me, they understood. The people that, were affiliated with Walk for Vets, the people that have been there with me, they got it. And I don't think I really went in depth, with a conversation about it, but they saw it. They saw me being worn down by just being everywhere I could be when I needed to be there. And it was definitely needed, and for the other people, like, I'm the type of person, if you can't tell me, I don't even want to know about it. Like, you hear people rumbling and you hear it through this person, you hear it through that person. Like, if you're not going to come to me and tell me what you have to say, I don't even want to hear it. So it's just, I needed the break. I needed to figure things out and learn how to navigate all of this.
Mine, unfortunately, came from, it was self-aware, but it was after like a significant loss, and not loss to death, but loss of a relationship. Because about this time in my life, when I was relying on these pills to get me through the night and just where I could wake up and start over again, I had completely fractured my relationship with my children. And my mental capacity to take care of myself was diluted. And so I could, without me being able to take care of myself, I wasn't taking care of the children like I needed
Right.
to. And so by the time I realized I had this problem, unfortunately, most of the damage was already done. And, that relationship was already fractured. And that still haunts me to this day that never happened, or that I could have done something better. But yeah, it was more self-aware once I realized what had happened, what was the result of me doing that. And then all the relationships that hurt, all the people in my life I pushed away, all of those things that when you're lost in that, all I could see was work, gym, eat, sleeping pills. I didn't see anything around me. But that was so toxic for my life. But I didn't I didn't know that until I started losing people around me, and I had to do something about it. You know?
Now, can I ask a vulnerable question to both of you guys? I know I've been
Sure.
asking quite a few questions and not answering, but at the same time, of those relationships and how those situations made you guys feel, at any point throughout your service, did any of the training or any of your leadership ever have enough world experience to have conversations with you to prepare you for any of that?
No.
I was
Absolutely.
I was the experience. I was helping some of my leaders navigate some of their problems.
Well, I take that back. I had one NCO that was phenomenal. His name was Sergeant First Class Spring. It was two actually. I had an officer and an NCO. It was at the time it was Major Thompson, and it was Sergeant First Class Spring. If I had any mentors in that military time period where I could go to somebody and talk to, or that, because I didn't develop this crisis, or this addiction to these sleeping pills till way after I got out. But if there was two leaders in my military career that shaped me, or if I needed something I could go to they would honestly answer me and give me good advice, it was them two. They were probably the two most sound leaders I've ever had that wore military uniform.
You know, when it comes to my side of things, the advocacy side of things, there's been a few people that have been close to me. One of them I did serve with, Sergeant Jesse Claren. He's walked with me in Florida the entire Gulf. He's always been a great mentor for me to call and be like, hey, what about this? What about that? What do you think about this? Straightforward. And then I have, James has met Jason, and Jason's been like a brother to me. We met in Texas walking. He's been my go-to for not just walk stuff, but life stuff. I think he was probably the second person that knew about Trey, because I was in a situation where my mind wasn't on right. I had no idea what I was doing. I was going in a direction, and like call him up and I'm like, dude, like tell him his emotions kick in. And then I'm like asking him a question, and he was able to be that person. So
Mhm.
I have good people in my life, that have been there to support me when I'm down and
Mhm.
out.
And I remember when we heard about Trey, and I was very um, cautious. But then, I did reach out to John, and he did confirm everything. But John's always been one of those guys too that no matter what organization we're with, or no matter what we're doing in the community, he's always right there. Whether if he's walking across the United States, or he's still available there if you need him. So yeah, John and I have known each other for a long time, and that's just a relationship that's developed over those years and turned into a very good, trustworthy relationship. And what I like about this is I'm developing the same relationship with Sean and Jen and Rich, that our family in Florida now. So I can see the characteristics between those two trustworthy relationships developing at the same time, and it goes back to, it matters who you keep around you,
Absolutely.
because if when you find yourself in that dark spot, rock bottom, do you have the support system around you that's going to understand you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like it's the purpose too, like the mission. What is your intent? What are you trying to get out of this? What is your motive? And when you're around like-minded people that, are willing to be like, look, this is not in my realm. I cannot do this, but I can call James, I can call Sean, and I know one of those guys can. I don't have to try to fight through something that I don't know how to navigate. And that's where that working relationship, you said earlier, 100%. That's working at 100%. Knowing that you
Mm-hmm.
don't always have the answers, but knowing that you have people you can trust, that you can send somebody to, that you can all work together to help
Yeah.
somebody get through something. And I think a lot of times when you're looking at organizations, you're not seeing that. You have organizations out there that work well with others. You do. But there's a lot of times when you're looking at these organizations, it's like an internal thing. Like we're only staying in house. We're not going to work with other people. They're not going to broadcast that, but they show you in
Mm-hmm.
other signs. You know.
What and this what's huge about this is, I think you and I have had this conversation this week, John, is the organizations you choose to partner with should be those organizations that are sharing like people's like-minded values. Like if another organization in your area is doing something positive and they're helping somebody, we should not be afraid to share their Facebook post. Put them out there for the good work that they're doing. And you do have a lot of organizations that can become selfish when they're trying to take all that credibility, and they don't want to, turn around and say, hey, you know what, we're not doing this alone. There are these other organizations that believe in the same thing we do, and we're all doing this together.
Yep.
Because that's what one of the first things we aligned with Nautical Salute was. I quickly realized how straightforward and honest Sean was to this mission and what we do, and it directly reminded me of when I first met you about learning walking across the country. And like I said, motives. Why does Sean run this organization the way he does? Why does John walk across the country? Why do we partner and align ourselves with certain people? I like to call it a moral compass. My moral compass is it's pretty strict, and you know if you align with my moral compass, you know it because I'm closest to you. But
Yeah.
there are people, it just doesn't, their moral compass doesn't align with what we do, and you have to, and that's just a part of life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
And
You know.
real quick, we've got a few other more people. Katie Beth back in here. We got
Oh.
Philomena White. We've got
Mhm.
Doug from Vet Legacy Road to 100, who we're going to
Nice.
be spending time with in August.
Can't wait to meet you.
In Jacksonville Beach. And we, the alignment piece is, people should never be afraid to put someone else out in front of them
Mm-hmm.
and support them and drive their cause, so long as it's a worthy cause built behind honesty, integrity, the moral compass, and just good human being, like just good old family values, right? Because if you come to my table, I'm going to make sure you eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Katie's in here, and so we don't talk about this a lot, but it's another program. Y'all don't mind. I did when we learned about Trey's passing, we did let John's family know of the programs that we've been running. But so Katie is actually one of our mentors on the family outreach prevention panel. So we basically have on our website, if you've lost a warrior to suicide and you're lost in that grief journey and you don't know where to go and you don't know what the coroner's report has to say, all the little things that you're going to go through in that loss, we have a panel already put there for you. And Katie is a valuable member of that. She wanted to make a difference. So I want to highlight her for being selfless and making herself available in the time of her own trauma to be a part of that panel and help others that reach out to us. So, yeah. And if you're listening and you are struggling with a loss to suicide and you're dealing with grief that you don't know how to navigate, go to heroesinthesky.org, read their bios. We have all family relationships represented. We'll connect you with somebody who can walk you through the grief process. And the resources that the resources and the people we meet along the way are very significant to our success.
And the other thing I think that's important to share with us real quick, John, is grief doesn't have a time frame. It's not. It ebbs and flows, and there's memories, there's things, there's sense, there's things that bring all that back, and
Well, so go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, when it came to walking and advocating in that fashion, meeting organizations all across the country, meeting veterans all across the country, I would walk into a town, hear a veteran story, and stories would stand out to me. They would jump out at me. I'd go 2 towns down the road and I would tell that guy's story, that woman's story. And somebody be there like, oh my goodness, that's me. I can relate. And then sometimes I was able to connect those people, 2 towns away going through the same thing. And the next thing you know, they're friends, they're talking, and they're helping each other navigate what each other are feeling. And then not just that, but getting involved with these organizations, talking to these organizations and connecting people, connecting the dots all across the country. And walking, you have so much time to do that. It's a very slow process, if that.
Yeah, you got a lot of time to think when you're walking that many miles, don't you?
Yeah.
But also what your advocacy and that piece of it, what that does though for a lot of people is, when they connect with somebody who's been through similar walks of life or in similar shoes and have experienced, similar type of situations, and they're prospering, it gives hope that, they're not going to forget, obviously, but like they can live somewhat, when through peace and connection, because I think oftentimes, having experienced loss personally as well, and through my service and my personal life, is I actually, I look forward to having and sharing those memories with those people that I did experience, these tragedies with. But at the same time, it is a connection, and I know not everybody wants to relive those, but if you can focus on the positive things as much as possible and put a smile on your face, think about something goofy and silly, and like that does help.
Yeah. And two, the first part of this has been about advocacy and what's worked and how the relationships and the people we've met along the way have helped with our success and healing. But the second half of this episode, unfortunately, goes into a little bit of the other side that this is the reason we created this podcast. We created the podcast to spread positivity. We created the podcast to put other people's word out there and talk about important topics of that transition from armed services life to civilian life. But then we have to talk about suicide and those families that have dealt with it, the aftermath of it. It's in our title. And that's what tonight, what we want to remind people, and we want to talk a little bit about for the second half of the show, is that when you have a family or you have someone that loses a child, that loses a parent or a sibling, they see life completely different. You know, that person, the character that person used to be before the loss might not even exist anymore, because the silent weight of that loss they carry on their shoulders every day. And that you see a different person, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
You know,
I know we're getting ready to go, I believe, to a commercial break. And
okay.
I believe if you've got everything queued up, we'll go do that. And then when we come back, we'll get into the second half of the show here.
Yeah, let me I got it, Rich, because I'll have to. So we'll give us about. We're going to play this video, and then we'll take about a 4-minute break. We're going to come back, and then we'll talk with John about what that loss of after suicide looks like, how it impacts families.
I used to think healing was supposed to sound heroic, like victory speeches, like medals hitting a wooden table, like somebody finally saying, "You made it." But healing sounded more like silence, like sitting in the truck too long after work, because home felt safer when the engine was still running, like staring at a grocery store aisle, trying to remember why your heart suddenly started racing, like waking up at 2:13 in the morning, sweating through memories you never asked to keep. See, they trained us to survive the battlefield, but nobody really taught us how to survive ourselves afterward. Nobody talked about how trauma follows you home wearing civilian clothes, how it hides in fireworks, crowded rooms, empty bottles, divorce papers, missed phone calls, and the sentence, "I'm fine." Especially that sentence. I know veterans who carried entire teams on deployment, but struggle to carry groceries inside the house now. Men and women who could navigate chaos overseas, but can't navigate their own thoughts when the room gets quiet. And still, they wake up. Still, they fight. That matters. You hear me? That matters. Because hope isn't always loud. Sometimes hope is just making the appointment, answering the phone, talking for the first time, saying, "No, I don't think I'm okay." That's courage too. Maybe even the purest kind. See, the world loves the image of the warrior, but healing asks something harder. It asks the warrior to become human again, to let people in, to trust again, to stop apologizing for wounds nobody can see. And that process, it's ugly sometimes. There are setbacks, bad nights, anger that shows up uninvited, days where depression feels heavier than body armor ever did. But there are also moments, small moments, where light gets through. A kid's laugh, a sunrise after a sleepless night, brothers and sisters sitting around a table finally telling the truth, a stranger saying, "Me too." That's where healing begins. Not in pretending the trauma never happened, but in realizing the trauma doesn't get to write the ending. You survived war. You survived loss. You survived becoming someone you barely recognized.
Now comes the hardest mission of all, believing you deserve peace too. And maybe peace doesn't mean forgetting. Maybe peace is learning that your scars are not proof you're broken. They're proof you kept going. So to every veteran still fighting battles nobody sees, you are not weak for needing help. You are not forgotten. And your story, it is not over.
Wow. There it goes.
We lost everybody. There we go. Yeah, so welcome back. And if you watched that video, you saw some of the statistics of what we're about to talk about and the effects that suicide does have on families.
James, can you hear me?
All right, I got you. It was me.
I have no
You see
sound.
my red? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear him now? You may have to drop him back out in
Yeah, hold on.
round
Let me
2.
remove them. Back in. Can you hear me now?
us now?
No. All right, so I'm gonna remove you and then there you go. Use that link to come back in because I can hear everybody fine.
Yep. I don't know why I did it, but see, that was crazy because he was already in here. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, hey, but when he comes back, I'm going to tell you, you know, this man's been through it. And James, you know him. So maybe you speak a little bit about him just from a personal side of just what kind of man he is. And we'll get him back up in here.
Here we go.
I'm here. Now I can hear you. I don't know what's up.
Perfect. Okay, here we go. So everybody, welcome back. Now we are going into the phase where we're going to go into some difficult conversations of what suicide does to families. But we want to give a better introduction to John, and I just feel like I should be the person to do that because I've known John for 4, 5, 6 years. It's been a while, and just a great human being. He's walked probably all across this country in advocacy for other veterans to raise awareness for mental health. And recently, he'll tell his story, but he is a strong human being. But recently, he's dealt with his own trauma, and he's lost a warrior to suicide, and so he's got the courage to come talk with us today about that. So we just want to ask everyone to give him the grace and that he needs. And then John, if it gets tough or if it gets tight, let us know. We can change the subject. But it's just more about how families like yours have learned to love differently or protect their peace just maybe a little bit harder from what the grief and trauma that you've been through due to the loss.
Yeah. So, I mean, you say eye-opening, but it's definitely much more than that. I would say you're never prepared for that phone call. I was the first one in Trey's immediate family to get that phone call. His fiance's stepfather called me. He was a Marine veteran. And I saw him pop up on my phone. It was January 7th of this year. And I actually thought it was my neighbor. And because they're both named Doug. And so when I answered the phone, I kind of started out by like, dude, are you ever going to take your Christmas lights down? And I threw Doug completely off because he's calling me to like change my entire life, and he's like, John, I think you might have the wrong Doug. And I'm like, oh, hey man, what's up? And he tells me, and it's a repeat. What did you just say? And it's shock. It's immediate shock. You know, um, my second thought was his mom, his siblings. And I didn't want his mom finding out from a sheriff's department. Luckily, they live the town next to me, and that became my mission. I needed to be the one to tell, even though like I don't put that conversation on anybody ever. That is never something you want to look a mom in the face and say to her, especially when it's your own child. And I'll never forget that. That's never going to go away. You said something earlier that you're never the same. And I will never be the same as I was on January 6th. We all handle this differently, you know, and that's one thing very important. If you have gone through this, and hopefully you never have to go through this, just understand that everybody goes through this differently. They grieve differently, they process differently. Um, Being in the veteran world and going back prior to Trey, I've been around this. I've been around families that have endured this loss. I've sat with them. I've talked to them. I've helped them navigate the grieving process, not me as a counselor, but me as an ear, as me as in connecting them with other people that could help them. And so I I have a granddaughter that will never know her father. She'll know who he is through his family and through her mom and her family, but she's going to be 2 in November. And it's a pain that you can't describe. Um, you know, I'm trying to think about that week, because if anybody's ever, you know, just lost a loved one and had to be that person to make those arrangements, like there's no time to grieve. There's no time, there's very little time for process, because it is such a fast paced, you know, you lose somebody. The next day you're on the phone and you're making arrangements and you're starting this process, and it goes on for a week to 2 weeks. And the next thing you know, like, oh, all that's over, you know, and now what? And that's when the actual processing begins. But I will say that I consumed myself with the other people, you know, checking on my daughters, checking on Wyatt, my other son, you know, checking on my ex-wife, checking on my grandkids, Trey's fiance. Like I consumed myself with being that person for so long, and like during that process, that I do think a big part of me, it helped me get through it, if that makes sense. Um Going back, you know, I've been dealing with suicide since I worked in the prison system since '02. Um, it happened all the time, you know, and you dealt with that, but nothing prepares you for it being your child. And going back to what I said about everybody grieving differently, for me, doing this is what's helping me get through that process. But that's not everybody. You know, you see moms, dads, siblings, spouses, they start organizations. You know, they start organizations to honor their loved one. And I commend them for that, because you're taking the most horrific time of your life and you're trying to turn it into a positive thing to help other people. And for me, you know, Walk for Vets was established back in, well, as Buddy Watch Walk in 2019. And everything I've done to this point, or everything I've done prior to Trey, is no different, other than trying to put myself in those family shoes. I'm walking in it now. You know, I'm there. I'm doing it, you know. And I hate that, but if I could take my horrific day and help somebody either navigate through theirs or help a veteran not go down that road, then that's what I want to do. That's what's helping me to get through this. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day, because there's for me, I've spoken to veterans that have attempted suicide, and I mean pulled the trigger suicide, and have survived. They have lived to say their side, what they were thinking, you know. And the one thing that's out there is, you hear a lot of people say, is that, well, we got to remind these struggling veterans about their family and this and that. And what I've tried to tell people is, they're not thinking about their family. You know, they're not thinking about the aftermath of their decision, their choice. Because if that was the case, it wouldn't be what it is. You know, we have veterans out there that say, like, I had a veteran I met, shot herself twice. You know, she lived. The last thing she remembers was looking at pictures. She didn't even remember. And lots of other veterans said that they had blacked out, that they don't recall what got them to that point. And so it's just very important that, you know, we align ourselves. And that's the biggest thing with Trey. Trey struggled. You know, we all have problems. You know, Trey had problems before the military. There's things that he struggled with. But leaving from home, going in the military, going to Iraq, and getting out of the military, it was a huge difference. You know, he closed himself off. He wasn't as close with his family that he was before. And he was struggling, and he was deteriorating from the inside out, with moments of, you know, we go to rehab. I take him to rehab. You know, he would do good for a while, but then it would come back. You know, he would start to spiral again, and we'd have to do it again. And then he would come out with me and advocate and, you know, participate in walks, and we'd travel, and he would talk to these families, and he would hear the devastation left behind by suicide. And so for me, I don't know what Trey's last thoughts were, you know, but I can tell you, I'm pretty sure it wasn't his family, you know. And I just, you know, and when it happens, you're looking for everything, you know, you're trying to dissect everything. You're, you know,
You want answers.
yeah, like, you know, and the first thing, honestly, you start thinking like maybe it wasn't him, maybe this happened or maybe that happened. Trey wouldn't do that. Trey, this and that. And that was the case in our situation, and I'm sure it's the case in many other situations. You start questioning, well, was it even him? Was he mixed up in something? And, did this and that happen? I mean, you're looking for anything other than that. And you come to the conclusion that they're gone, and it's just, it's something that a part of me will never understand, no matter how much I advocate, no matter how many people I talk to. um I won't understand all of it, but the only thing I can do is push forward and try to save other people. And if Trey's story, if that story, if the aspect of Trey's life or Trey's struggles or the aftermath of what's left behind, can help a family, if it can help a veteran, help somebody understand. Because Trey's never called me. I've never turned him away. He's called me several times, Dad, hey, I need some help, or hey, Dad, this snap. And I've always been there, and that will never change. That was who I am. That's who I am with all my kids. But if he would have made one more phone call, if it would have been one more day, I think it would have made a difference. But then again, I come to the conclusion that Trey was just done. He didn't want to do this no more.
Can I ask you a question, John?
Yes.
Continuing to go through this, because it's not, you went through it, you will always be going through this to some degree. Have you found that, do you find that it harder to advocate now because it hits so close to home, or do you find it easier because I know you've taken a break from walking, and I think you're getting back into it? So how does the aftermath for you affect your outlook and your ability to advocate as strong as you once did?
Well, it definitely changed my mission, to make it more personal. But a part of it's harder and a part of it is more understood. Not easier, but just more understood. The harder aspect of it is, at times I question myself, should I be talking about this? Should I be, I don't know. This is the aspect that's complicated when you have multiple family members, because everybody grieves differently.
Yeah.
Some of the people in your family, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want anything to do with that. And it's okay. Like, that's their way. If you want to sit in a dark room and work your way through it, that's your choice, and maybe if I wasn't already an advocate, maybe if I wasn't around this as much as I would have, like I was before, maybe that's the way I'd be processing it right now, or maybe not. But that's the hard part, because I don't know, like, is it fair for me to talk about it? Is it fair for me to I don't want to use the word exploit, but like, in almost that aspect, that's what you feel like. You know what I mean? You're you're putting your worst day out there, and you're being vulnerable. And we know people take things all different ways, and I'm just kind of afraid for that day where, somebody makes that comment, or because like I've seen it, we've all seen it, people look at things in all different perspectives, but I'm just confused to like myself is like, I don't know. It's really hard for me to explain. I'm so scrambled up in my head about it. I want to use like I want to share Trey's story to help other people, but at the same time, I don't know what limit that. You know what I mean? It's just I don't, if you guys can understand what I'm saying. And sorry,
Well,
folks, if I'm babbling. Like I'm trying
No.
to navigate something I probably have never talked about. So.
well, you're navigating grief that probably a lot of people haven't felt, and so you definitely deserve all the grace that comes with that. And we're just grateful you have the courage to come on here and talk about it with what you are. And you are right. I mean, I've had comments before about our Deterrence Through Truth series where we interviewed families directly and we deep dive into that loved one and, what happened before, what happened after, asking if I felt like that was like an exploitation of that family. And I never thought it was, because the family member, they knew exactly what that was before they agreed to do it. But like you're saying, you might get some negative comments like that from people from other perspectives that don't see it the way you do.
See, I'm
And
stuck in that world of advocacy and dad. You know what I mean? So, like you're looking at it right there, I've seen the same thing. I've done posts in the past talking about veterans and seen the same, responses. And so like I'm stuck in the world of advocacy, dad, and that is it is a really tricky thing to navigate. Um but it goes back to what I've done in the past and the veterans that I have reached that, reach out and be like, dude, because of that walk, I'm still here today. Or dude, because of this, I'm my family and we're doing great and my kids know me and this and that. It takes me back to those moments where if I can change that one person's life,
mhm.
sharing Trey's story is worth it.
And I would absolutely 100% agree, because we never know who's watching it currently. We never know
Mhm.
who's going to be watching it at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning when they can't sleep. And we don't even know who's going to just see a Heroes in the Sky shirt or a nautical salute, or even about the walks that you do, John. It's going to lead people back to these moments where they can actually have a connection as well in their space, their time. And, sometimes just having that connection of, wow, like they've been through something like I have. Like
Mhm.
that's enough to kind of bring some level of relief. And slowly in time, how do I get involved? Like, or how do I take the next step in my healing? Right? What does that next step look like? Which is why I think it's fantastic, James, that you've got, the panelists, that
Mhm.
people can reach out to have a sense of connecting with
Mhm.
somebody who's lived a trauma as well, like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
John.
We were, I was a past commander of American Legion Post 296 in Mineola, Texas, and Trey was a member there at one point. And so, when Trey passed, the post reached out and said, "Hey, we would like to do a memorial for Trey," and so went out there, and a lot of great folks came out and supported Trey and what was going on. And I remember I was at the post and I was keeping my composure, I was keeping my composure. I mean, I just spent like probably, I don't know, that might have been 3 weeks after everything happened. First of all, like my face hurt, for like an entire 2 weeks, because it was just, it was uncontrollable emotion, um, and so like I'm trying to keep my composure and keep my composure. And Robert and Barbie Rohde come walking in, and Barbie Rohde, they are super big supporters of Mission 22. They go all over the state of Texas. Her son took his own life. That was the first person after Trey passing that I knew, like, I don't know, first parent, let's say it, first parent that I've seen after Trey passing that had a similar story, that was face to face with me, and I lost it. I lost it. And I whispered in her ear. I remember I whispered in her ear, and I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry." I think I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I said I'm sorry. And she was like, "For what?" I said, "I'm sorry for all the times that I've tried to ever understand what it is that you are feeling, that you were feeling, because I know at this point right now, I never had a clue. Never had a clue." And that is, I think that's where, because, like, so Trey passed on January 7th of this year, and fast forward not even a month, and I mentioned his name on the last one. Not even a month later, February 6th, a Marine combat vet, Nicholas Accord Jr., took his own life. And his dad was a Marine vet. I'm a vet. So now I'm talking to a dad who served, son followed in his footsteps. And let's just talk about that. Son follows in your footsteps, and you're the survivor.
That's heavy. We talked about that the last time you were on, and it's like it's how I couldn't imagine. And because it's got to play in your head of, if they didn't follow him, it's the what if game, right?
It's always like the whole situation's a what if game, and in that there too. And so I connected with Nick's dad, Nick Sr. And I mean, I wouldn't say we're like friends, but we've messaged back and forth, and we've made it known that we are there for each other, and that if he needs something. But for me, it was just, Nicholas was born in 1999. Trey was born in 1999. They both, I think, were deployed around the same time. It's just, it was such a similar story. And then from that moment, February 6, 26, there's probably 8 more. Not the same situation, but 8 more veterans that I have learned about. And there's much more. We know there's much more, but I'm saying just me personally, where I'm just like, that's James's statistics that he shares. How many people, when I heard James say that the first time, I was like, because, we did 22, 22, 22. I mean, that's when it all started. We talked about 22, 22, and everybody was 22. But those statistics, knowing what I know now, makes absolute, it's absolutely the way it is. And for our situation, it was almost 5 family members. I think you said 5 family members directly impacted by it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add 100 plus,
129,
135. It's 135.
Which, was pretty close. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't count them, but close, and then, just multiply that by all of, it's devastating. And so the fact that I know that John's not, it's like anything else, as a veteran, when we're advocating, when you're a veteran struggling and you're sitting there with another veteran struggling in a similar situation, and you find it inside of you to pull yourself out of it and look at that other person and say, we can do this. It's like an internal thing. Brother, you're going through the same thing I'm going through. You connect, you help each other pull out of it. It's the same thing in this situation. I see the families, the wives, the mothers, the dads, the siblings, and they're going through this. They are what motivating me now. There, it used to be, it used to be the veteran to veteran. It used to be like, seeing somebody suffering, them getting better. It motivated me. It motivated. Now it's me knowing that there are so many families out there that have endured this,
Mm.
that have navigated this, and a lot of times with very little support.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Very little support, and you're lost. How many veterans that are struggling sit there and talk to their family about the VA system? How many family members actually know how to navigate the VA at all? So something like this happens, that veteran's no longer here. That family's like left in the dark. And that's when you have to find that good organization that can help navigate you through that process.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, John. Doug Wilkerson from Vet Legacy has a question that he would like to ask, because I did open it up to questions, just in case anybody wanted to. He says, "What do you feel is your biggest impact or change that can help to prevent this currently?" And he said, "Sorry if this question seems inappropriate, but what do you feel is your biggest impact or change that can help prevent this?"
This might not be everybody's answer, but I do think this falls more on the military and a little bit of what we talked about earlier about people getting out. I will tell you that when Trey left the military, he was already battling substance abuse. He was pushed out the door, no help. I will tell you, I was walking across the state of Arizona and I got a phone call almost right after Trey's deployment. And his NCO calls me and says, "Hey, is this Mr. Ring?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm your son's NCO. I just want to let you know he got a DUI. He's in jail." I said, "Okay, go get him." He's like, "What?" I said, "Go get him. That's your soldier. Go get him." Jimmy's walking next to me, retired master sergeant, 25 years, and he's like, "Go get him." "Oh, sorry, sir. We don't do that no more." Jimmy's like, "What are you talking about? We don't do that no more." I was in for 25 years. 20 of my years in the military, I was getting guys out of jail. "What do you mean we don't do that no more?" And so, like, I had to get them bailed out. Then they went to go pick them up, bring them back. Did they get them in treatment? Nope.
Yeah.
Probably gave
Right
more
on down the chain.
consequences.
Put your uniform back on. Get out there, bud.
And probably gave him consequences.
Yeah.
Yes. So to answer your question, Doug, I believe it's while these guys, gals are in the military, helping them rather than trying to dismiss them and get them out the door and not make them your problem anymore. And then it's also making the process easier for people when they get out to get the help they need.
Before they get in trouble.
Before they get in trouble, before they go down that road, before they lose that honor that they had while wearing the uniform. You take somebody that was a great soldier, they get out, they don't know how to navigate outside. Very quickly do they lose that image, that honor, that self-respect, that confidence. They lose it almost immediately. And then you just throw roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And now they're spiraling. They have nowhere to go. And by the time they get to some place that can help them, where are we at?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're gonna close out here soon. But I will say that how many conversations have you and I had, Sean, that those retention NCOs know who is not staying in months in advance. They know the service members that
Typically
need are there.
typically 6 to 12 months before they
Yeah,
ETS, because they're not allowing them to reenlist, or they're just leaving because they're
yeah.
done, right?
Yeah, because they know well in advance when they're not getting out. At that point, that's when you give them a list of these are the mental health providers that in your area that you can start, you know, you can start utilizing. These are resources you can use other than writing a resume, other than this is what looks good on paper. That you have that 6 to 12 month time window is your time to start giving them the tools they need to be successful once you hand them the DD 214 and say, okay, we're done. You're done. You have that time. We're just not using it properly.
Look, and at the end of the day, that DD 214, that should almost be like the diploma. Like, if you think about it, right? You've done all the hard work while you served, and you've done the hard work so you can leave,
Yes.
and graduate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be that wind down that I also believe pairs them with a successfully transitioned service member to that goes beyond just, I'm a real estate agent. Nothing against anybody else right here, and I'm going to pair them with, a peer that has only been a truck driver, right? That doesn't work.
Trey, there was a part of Trey, and I won't say any names on this, but I talked to somebody pretty high up on Fort Hood back in those days. Trey was also a part of a situation that happened, and it wasn't just Trey, right? It was a lot of soldiers that were struggling. They were kicked out or like pushed out the door with no resources, because that was around the time that Vanessa Gillen on Fort Hood. And so DC came in there and cleaned house. And they just goodbye. And a lot of the soldiers that came off of that deployment, that last deployment, that were struggling, were shown the door.
Yeah.
So, politics plays a role in this too. Let's not, I'm not going down that road, but,
Yeah.
The political aspect of the military plays a role in this as well. I'll say that.
In the comments real quick, before, I know we're getting ready to wrap this up, but, the TAPS class, right? The transition programs, they're geared towards check writing resumes, whatever. Not really the root of the problem. Oh, hey, file for your disability, within 12 months of getting out. But, the TAP program in its current state does not address, it's not a cookie cutter for everybody. While it does aid certain people who might have had a different experience in the military, people that are geared, towards more of the civilian life, because we know those troops. While you're in, who's really a garrison troop, a field troop, or just a troop that is really a civilian just getting a paycheck. I mean, let's be honest. So we have to find the ones that love their country, and provide it for everybody, but really find the ones that love their country, who joined for a purpose and who are struggling too, and really try to give a program approach for the exit.
Yeah. Well, we need more peer to peer. Like, you need more peer to peer that actually matters. Like peer to peer with, I love the idea of, because we do have to close out, but you find, how many retired veterans, if a chain of command or someone in the military would go and say, hey, we've got these soldiers getting out. We know you recently did this and that, and try to pair you with somebody like that before you get out. Like, why aren't we doing that? Like, why aren't we setting these soldiers up with a peer that's already navigated getting out of the military, navigating looking for a civilian job, navigating this is where, this is where I went for mental health. These things are already there. And it would not be that much of a task to find veterans that are already out that would do this for these soldiers getting out.
Yeah.
Like
there's so many.
absolutely. Yeah.
How many veterans are like 100% permanent? You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I want to, if you don't mind, I want to say something. I said something earlier and I caught myself, and I wanted to give the family respect when I mentioned Vanessa Gillen. That was a sad situation. Her life was taken. I said situation. I didn't like my choice of words. I know her family, so I want to give that respect. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. And we're going to close this out in here shortly with a word to our sponsors. But I want to thank you for the courage. I want to thank you for the courage. I want to thank you for the years of friendship that you've not only given to me, but to Heroes in the Sky, to every other organization that I've been affiliated with. You've always been there. And I want to say that that's a relationship that will continue on for years and years, as much as we trust you. And we appreciate that. I want to say thank you to Nautical Salute, Jen, Sean, Rich. Y'all are amazing. Become family. We'll be part of y'all. Y'all are stuck with us. That's what y'all tell us.
You're stuck. You're stuck.
Yeah. And I also want to tell everyone in the comments tonight, we had a very active comment section. We are grateful for you, for joining us, for sharing your feelings. There were people in the comments tonight of all representations. We have people in the comments that have lost warriors to suicide. We had people in the comments that not only lost warriors to suicide, but may have started organizations to help other people. And then we had people in the comments that
served.
What I like to served, and they're still serving once they take the uniform off. And that's really important to us. It's a great audience to have. So I'm going to give like one final word, and we'll give you your final statement before we close out, and we'll go into that we'll go into our sponsors, then we'll go into the video, and then just hang out in the lobby there, and we'll close it out, John. But so we'll start with you, Sean, as we close out. What are we, everyone listening that may watch this 2-3 in the morning, what do we tell them?
Number one, I'm going to tell you, you're not alone. That, you can reach any of us. And, when we see it, we'll respond. That, don't let the dark days win.
Right. Awesome. John, what do you got to tell somebody that's maybe can't sleep watching this 2-3 in the morning?
Well, if you're a veteran, thank you for your service. If you're a veteran and you know somebody's struggling, make it your service. Help that person out. Get them in contact with somebody. Watch your people. Make sure everybody's good. Check on them. Advocates, thank you for all you do. You're a big part of all this, whether you served or didn't serve. And to all the families that have lost someone to suicide, it's a horrible situation that does not go away. For those of you that have come out of it and became an advocate, a fighter, I commend you for that. It is not easy to navigate any of that. So thank you for that. And I just want to say that James, you talked about our relationship. I love what you're doing. Sean, we haven't met yet. There's going to have to be some fishing going on here or something. We could talk more on a boat, or I don't even care if we're staying on a bridge, whatever.
So, August 22nd.
Well, August 22nd, we're going to be in Jacksonville Beach. So,
the next day,
I think I'm gonna make an appearance down in Jack's Beach.
Hey, that'd be great. Even if we don't go on the boat, we actually have a beach right there.
How about let's make a pact right now, us three and whoever else, while we're all in Jacksonville, let's all get together. Let's all have some camaraderie. Let's fish. Let's do whatever. Let's get together as brothers and let's just combine and have a good time.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm just going to close this out. I want to thank Daniel Evotson here. I remember him back when I was, early in the advocacy stages. I just want to. It's good to hear from him, and I remember talking with him, and I'm grateful for him to be back in here with us and to be watching this. So Daniel, thank you so much. I miss you too. We'll catch up soon, anytime, and I'm grateful for everyone around me that has made this journey possible for me. And if y'all didn't catch it earlier, my mother was in these comments.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. So there, my mom's starting to become part of these comments. So when I talk
Where are
about
the
some of
secrets?
these, right? So
Where are the secrets,
when
Mom?
when I start talking about some of these darker days that even they don't know about, I always get those phone calls the next day. They're like, we had no idea. So I want to thank everyone for just giving me the chance to talk and get that stuff out there. We're going to close this out. John, real quick, give the people your website if they want to get a hold of you to get more involved with what you're doing.
Simple, walkforvets.org. You follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and visit our website. Anything. We have a walk on July 4th on Hilton Head Island. It's an 8-mile walk to celebrate the 250, but also pay tribute to everybody who has ever served in our military. And then we have a walk in Nebraska on September 24th, 25th, and 26th. That's Jason's hometown walk across Kimball County. It is in the middle of nowhere. And it's actually a very nice walk because it is in the middle of nowhere. So,
all right. Well, that's how you get a hold of John. If you want to get involved with those walks, email him, go to the website, get involved. I'm gonna go to our sponsors real quick. We want to thank American Legion Post 135 this year. They are our title sponsors. They are located in historic downtown Savannah, Georgia at 1108 Bull Street. They are a member of the largest veteran service organization in the nation. They were founded on the principles of service to our veterans and to our community, state, and nation. Their membership is open to any veteran who has served honorably and to active duty service members. They are home to the local 1110, Betty Bombers, Brighter Day, Centennial Bean, and Lee Chai. And their bar is open to the public. The best thing about this is if you are in the Savannah, Georgia area, or even if you're not, and you want to host an event in their public space, you can rent that beautiful space. And it's going to be awesome. Just tell them your friends at Heroes in the Sky sent you. And then we want to thank our realtor sponsors, Mari Bennett and Annie Montenegro. Thank you for all you give to us. And then what I will say is if you're listening to this and you want to hear your name, your business on this podcast, and you want to be a sponsor, please reach out to either James at heroesinthesky.org or Sean at heroesinthesky.org. And we can put you on the screen and highlight what you're doing in the community as well. So with that being said, I think I'm going to ask our awesome audio engineer to lead us out.
I used to think healing was supposed to sound heroic, like victory speeches, like medals hitting a wooden table, like somebody finally saying, "You made it." But healing sounded more like silence, like sitting in the truck too long after work, because home felt safer when the engine was still running, like staring at a grocery store aisle, trying to remember why your heart suddenly started racing. Like waking up at 2:13 in the morning, sweating through memories you never asked to keep. See, they trained us to survive the battlefield, but nobody really taught us how to survive ourselves afterward. Nobody talked about how trauma follows you home wearing civilian clothes, how it hides in fireworks, crowded rooms, empty bottles, divorce papers, missed phone calls, and the sentence, "I'm fine." Especially that sentence. I know veterans who carried entire teams on deployment, but struggle to carry groceries inside the house now. Men and women
who could navigate chaos overseas but can't navigate their own thoughts when the room gets quiet. And still, they wake up. Still, they fight. That matters. You hear me? That matters. Because hope isn't always loud. Sometimes hope is just making the appointment, answering the phone, talking for the first time, saying, "No, I don't think I'm okay." That's courage too. Maybe even the purest kind. See, the world loves the image of the warrior, but healing asks something harder. It asks the warrior to become human again, to let people in, to trust again, to stop apologizing for wounds nobody can see. And that process, it's ugly sometimes. There are setbacks, bad nights, anger that shows up uninvited, days where depression feels heavier than body armor ever did. But there are also moments, small moments, where light gets through. A kid's laugh, a sunrise after a sleepless night, brothers and sisters sitting around a table finally telling the truth, a stranger saying, "Me too." That's where healing begins. Not in pretending the trauma never happened, but in realizing the trauma doesn't get to write the ending. You survived war. You survived loss. You survived becoming someone you barely recognized. Now comes the hardest mission of all, believing you deserve peace too. And maybe peace doesn't mean forgetting. Maybe peace is learning that your scars are not proof you're broken. They're proof you kept going. So to every veteran still fighting battles nobody sees, you are not weak for needing help. You are not forgotten. And your story, it is not over.